Hello guys and welcome to this video. I am going to talk about all the books that I read in the month of April. And let me tell you, there is still quite a bit. If you remember, February I read 8 books, March I read 9 books, and this month, April, I read 9 books again. You were sensing there was going to be a pattern, right? You're going to hear 10 books. I did almost read 10 books. I just didn't quite finish the 10th one in time for April. But that's okay. 9 is still a good amount. I'm still very impressed with myself, especially since 3 of these books are bricks. They are like over 500 pages. I'm super happy. I cannot wait to talk about these books with you guys. So let's just start talking about them after I show you what they are. Oh my god, they like just fit within the screen. That is great. But these are all the books I read. This is actually very heavy, so I'm gonna put it down. Let's start with the first book that I read this month, and that is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This is the 3rd book in the Harry Potter series. As you know, if you watched my wrap-up video from last month, I have finally started reading Harry Potter. I've never read it before, so I'm so excited. I've watched the movies like thousands of times, but I've never actually read the books, and so I'm so excited to be reading the book series and learning more about this world and these characters. I will say the 3rd book is definitely like where the movies and books start becoming really different from each other. Like, yeah, there were differences with the 1st and 2nd, but like not big changes. This book had, I will say every chapter I read, I was like, okay, what is similar to the movie? So this is Harry Potter's 3rd year in school, and in this year of school we've got a prisoner who has escaped from Azkaban on the run. We have a new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher who has a secret, maybe more than one. We've got some time travel. We've got, what else do we have? We've got Dementors, we've got a new crush. There's just a good amount of stuff going on in this book, and I mean, it's a Harry Potter book, so obviously I love it. It was so great. J.K. Rowling does such a great job writing children's books. This is where I feel like the book series starts maturing and it starts getting a little bit darker. We start finding out more things about the characters. We also start finding out more things about the history and like the past of the wizarding world, mainly during like when Voldemort was around. I love that these characters have such great backstories and like they're so complex. And obviously my favorite characters from this book were definitely Sirius and Lupin. Lupin is the new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. He is a phenomenal character. Sirius is great. I love Sirius, and I'm like so nervous for the 5th book. Sirius is just great. He definitely is the most complex because in the beginning you start off like really not liking him and seeing him as, you know, this murderer who has been in Azkaban for 12 years and has escaped and is trying to kill Harry, but then you find out that this is not the case at all, and he is actually one of the good guys, and it's just so great. These paperback editions, by the way, I still love them so much, but this cover I think is my favorite of all the covers of this paperback edition. Just because, I mean, A, it's beautiful. Look at that Patronus. But I also love it because, like, you see this is Harry right here. But then here, I should probably bring this closer to the camera. So you see, like, right here, this is Harry. And then you've got over here, there's like a little face. That's Harry as well. We've got Harry and we've got Harry. Harry. It's great. I will say, so far out of the first 3, this one is one of my least favorites out of this is my least favorite out of the first 3, just because I wanted more Voldemort in this book. I feel like he wasn't really in this book much. Like, we talked about him a little bit here and there, but like he just didn't, I didn't feel his presence in the book. I don't know, I wanted more Voldemort. But still a phenomenal book, and I definitely gave this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is the first of the books that are bricks, and that is Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. And as you know, I've mentioned this before, I like to marathon book series, and so the 3rd book in this Illuminae Files series came out this month, so I finally started reading the first book in the series, Illuminae. And oh my goodness, these are so great. I cannot wait to start the second book. This is just wonderful. Also, okay, first of all, let me just, before I explain what this book is about, we need to appreciate how beautiful and super cool this book is. These books are the books where you want the hardcovers. The paperbacks, no, they're not as cool as the hardcovers. Because look at this. You have this like cool, shiny like cover, and then when you take it off, look at that. How freaking cool does that look? This is a space story that does have like some romance, but it's mainly got adventure, action, like computer gone mad, a virus outbreak in the middle of an interstellar war. Reading this book, I was like, I don't think I've ever read a book as cool as this one. I mean, I have, but like, I don't read many super cool books, and this was just a cool, but like, that's the best word to describe it as. It's cool. And I can't talk about this book without talking about the format of this book. Now, this book is 699 pages. It's pretty big. But I was able to fly through this book because of its format. It is not written in the normal way that books are written. No, 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 no. We're gonna be super cool, and we're gonna write in like, oh, I love that there's blood splatter on this page. Emails, instant messenger, manuscripts, video footage, AI. We even get the AI's point of view. There's so many different ways to tell this story, and it is just so freaking cool. Reading in that format did take a little bit getting used to, but once I got used to it, I was hooked on the story, and I just, oh my god, this was just such a really fascinating story too. I got so hooked, and I just wanted to make sure everyone was okay. And I went through so many feelings. Even without the like super cool format, it's still a really great read just because this story was so compelling. And there are just so many like awesome elements to the story and so many surprises along the way. Like, I don't think I could have predicted anything that happened in this story. And still, I have no idea what's gonna happen in the second one or the third one. And I have no idea where this story is going, but I am so along for the ride with like a fantastic world and fantastic characters. I just truly love this book so much, and I cannot wait to read the second one. I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read completes my challenge for this year, which is to read one nonfiction book a month. And so that nonfiction book I read this month is Odd Birds by Ian Harding. And I do also have this autographed. If you don't know who Ian Harding is, that's okay. You don't have to know him. It's not a big deal, but I love him. And after meeting him, I fell even more in love with him. But he was on the show Pretty Little Liars. He played Mr. Fitz, aka Ezra Fitz, and Ezra Fitz was also like my favorite character. I just loved him so much. He was the English teacher turned boyfriend, turned husband, turned ex, turned lots of things. Also writer slash stalker for a little bit. There was that one season where we all thought he was A. And so this is just like his little like memoir that he wrote, and I will say I wasn't expecting much, just because usually when actors write books, I never expect much. Yeah, it wasn't much because I feel like he doesn't have a lot of life experience yet to really talk about stuff, if that makes any sense. And I mean, his writing also wasn't the greatest. Like, I felt the way he told the story was a little bit boring, but what I loved was that he mixed the stories with his love of bird watching. So there were a couple stories where he talked about his bird watching, and those were actually the most fascinating chapters. I don't know why those were the fascinating chapters. There were other chapters about like his acting life and things on set and his life before and just all that stuff, but like for some reason the chapters where he was bird watching were the ones I loved the most. But I also love that even in those chapters where he wasn't talking about bird watching, he mentioned birds in the chapter in some way, either as like a metaphor or literally. I had no idea that he loved bird watching. It's one of his like biggest hobbies, and that's not something you normally see in people, yet he makes it kind of seem cool and fascinating. I mean, I enjoyed myself reading this book. It definitely didn't have the best writing. It didn't have really great, fascinating stories all the time, but I still enjoyed it. So I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is Not If I Save You First by Ally Carter. I am a huge Ally Carter fan. I have read all of her series, The Gallagher Girls, High Society, Embassy Row, but I've never read a standalone that she has written. It came out recently, and I, of course, had to buy it immediately, had to read it immediately, because it's Ally Carter. I gotta support my girl. I love her. And this story was definitely an interesting concept, but also at the same time a concept I've seen before. It felt like I know this like storyline, but yet this feels a little different at the same time. But basically this book takes place in Alaska, and we follow this girl Maddie, who is the daughter of someone who used to work in the Secret Service, but then they had to move to Alaska to kind of be safe, yeah, to keep themselves safe from attacks, because an attack had happened while Maddie was at the White House. Anyway, fast forward 6 years later, and the president's son, who used to be Maddie's best friend, is sent to Alaska, where Maddie is living, to kind of learn to work hard and not be so selfish and, you know, yada yada yada, that type of stuff. But then a hostage situation happens and some Russians come by, kidnap the president's son. Even though she is like super pissed at him for not returning her letters, she has to try and save the president's son. So it definitely switches the like gender roles. So instead of the damsel in distress, it's the guy in distress. Like, he's the one who needs the help, although he can also take care of himself a few times in the book too, which is great. But you know, she is super badass. I'm surprised that no one in this book had a concussion though. But it's a survival story, it's a hostage story. But I just love that it had like a badass female lead, and I did enjoy the guy as well, Logan. He, I felt, was like funny and cocky, but yet likable at the same time. It was fast-paced, very entertaining. I did feel like the ending was too short and abrupt. Like, I felt like I just wanted more from the ending. But other than that, I enjoyed myself reading this book. So I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read is Children of Blood and Bone. My second brick of a book that I read. Look how big that is. How many pages is this? 525 pages. I heard so much hype around this book, and so as soon as it came out, I was like, okay, I need to know what all the hype is about. I need to know what everyone's talking about. So I got it, I read it, and yeah, no, it deserves the hype that it's getting. I also did not know that this was gonna be the first in a series until I already started reading it, so I was like, oh, okay. Usually I like to marathon books, but that's okay. We'll just wait for the second one. We'll wait a year. I don't know if I can wait a year, honestly. It's hard to describe this book just because there's like so much history, and the world is just so rich and complex that there's too much going on to really be able to describe what happens without giving things away. But basically, magic used to be in this world, and then magic got taken away, and so the children that were born with magic or whatever that are left in the world, they're living very poorly, but then all of a sudden magic starts to come back, and we follow this girl who is the one mainly trying to bring magic back for everyone. The writing is just so beautiful. The pacing is perfect, and like I said before, the world building is so complex, but it's so well done because this world is so rich, and the world building just explains everything so well. It explains the magic system so well. It explains the history of the magic and the history of their land well. It explains dispute between the people with magic and the people not with magic very well. She did a great job with character development. I love that we had like multiple point of views, so we got to see the point of views from like multiple characters. Every character is just so badass. Even like the antagonists and like the bad people in the stories, I still loved them because again, they had great character development and they were still badass in their own way. Like, yeah, they're evil and you want them to, like, be destroyed, but they were still badass in trying to destroy the world. This was just such a very intense story and a very intense read, and I honestly can't find anything wrong with this book. It is perfect. 5 out of 5 stars. And the next book that I read is Herding Cats by Sarah Anderson. This is the third in the Sarah Scribbles collection. I absolutely love the Sarah Scribbles collection. I have read the other 2 books. They are super funny, and this one was just as funny. These books are filled with comics about adulthood, but like a very weird and very relatable adulthood, more like an adulthood for the modern time. And it's so funny, and these covers are so great because they're fuzzy, a little velvety here and there. As you can see, I have tabbed some of my favorites. It's got the same charm and humor as the others, and it's just great. I don't really have much to say about this other than it's great, so I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read, If You Come Softly by Jacqueline Woodson. This is the 20th anniversary edition. That was the main reason why I got this book, because I absolutely love this cover, this edition. This is just a very short book that follows an interracial couple, an interracial teen couple. So we follow a black guy and a Jewish girl who fall in love. We see their super sweet romance, but also very heartbreaking romance. We see how race is handled. Like, I like the way that how race was handled in this story. We see how people around them react, not just like their family members and their friends, but also just like random people walking down the street, seeing them like holding hands, and we see their reactions. And so that makes it a little heartbreaking too, because not everyone accepts their romance in this book. I did like the conversations that they would have with their parents and their family members, because I definitely feel like it brought up a lot of aspects about race that we don't normally think still exists, but it actually does. And I think it definitely portrays very well how like the characters feel about racism subconsciously, but like don't want to admit it or don't see that that's how they're reacting. And it definitely feels very like realistic and authentic in that way. I just felt like that was handled so well in this story. I did feel like it was too short, and the ending felt very abrupt to me. I wanted more. I wanted more from the ending. I just wanted more from the story and from the characters. Like, this definitely could have been so much longer. But I did very much enjoy it. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is the last of the bricks that I read, and that is Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, the 4th book in the Harry Potter series. This, yes, it's a brick. It's like 730 something pages. How many pages? 734 pages. So quite a bit. But I think this is definitely my favorite book so far. I will say I do have the unpopular opinion, and the 4th movie is my favorite. But I think it's because, I think the reason why the 4th is my favorite is because of multiple reasons. One, the main one probably, is that this has the element of competition in the book. Like, we've got the Triwizard Tournament happening, and so it's just a lot of competition with other schools and competition within the school. But I also really love this because this is kind of the book where shit gets real. This is where it starts getting really dark. Is obviously Harry Potter's 4th year at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Like I said, we've got the Triwizard Tournament, we've got students from other schools, we've got the Durmstrangs from Bulgaria, we've got the Beauxbatons from, I believe, France. We start seeing the corruption in the government, in their government system, the Ministry of Magic. We got friggin' Rita Skeeter. People trying to kill Harry, as usual. What's new? And of course we got Voldemort. Like, we have Voldemort. Yeah, I think that's why I like this so much, because it gets so much darker in this book. We have our first death in this book. I mean, we have had deaths in the other books too, but it was more like those deaths were mentioned, or they were, like with Quirrell, it was someone who was the antagonist in the story. it was unfortunate that Voldemort taken over his body pretty much. Not his body, but like his mind, I would say. I'm not sure. Quirrell's a very complicated person. We like don't really see the death happen. We just kind of like hear about the death, and this is the first book where a lot more deaths were mentioned. I'm not gonna list all the deaths that were mentioned, but we finally see our first death happen, like right in front of our eyes, and it was, I think it was so sad just because not only of who it was that died, the person that died is such a stand-up guy, and we probably all know who it is. I can say it, right? Cedric Diggory. I feel like he is the embodiment of good, and so that just brings on a whole new metaphor about how good has just died and now evil has risen. But also, it was just such a really quick death. Like, it just happened like that. It was like, boom, he's dead. And you're just like, wait, what? No, wait, hold on a sec. What? Even though I knew it was coming, because of course I watched the movies, I knew Cedric was going to be dying, it still felt really sad. And it still made me emotional. I love Cedric Diggory. I wish he didn't die. I understand he had to die. There was so many like characters in this book that I really wish had made it into the movie, and I'm kind of sad weren't in the movie, especially Winky and Pigwidgeon. Pigwidgeon is so cute and adorable. Freaking love him. And Winky, I feel like Winky is such an important part of the story, and I don't know why they didn't put Winky in the movie. Same with Ludo Bagman. Ludo Bagman is such a complex character that I feel like is needed in the story, and so I really wish that Ludo Bagman had been in the movies. I also wish they had more Dobby in the movie. Like, Dobby wasn't even in the 4th movie, but he's in the book. Absolutely loved this book. It's wonderful. 5 out of 5 stars. And finally, we're on to the last book, almost said movie, the last book that I read this month, and that is Circe by Madeline Miller. This is the book of the month pick that I chose for this month, and I'm really happy with it. I initially chose it just because of Greek mythology. I love Greek mythology. I love Egyptian mythology more, but Greek mythology is definitely like a close second for me. I love just hearing stories because they're just so ridiculous, and just the things that they came up with story-wise back in the day is just so imaginative. But in this one we follow Circe, who is the daughter of Helios, who is the sun god. And so she is a nymph and she turns into a witch. And so we see her, like, her childhood and her growing up, and then we see her getting exiled. And so we see her life on this island as she's exiled, where she's like honing her witchcraft. She meets up with a bunch of like other famous people from Greek mythology stories. Like, we meet Hermes, we've got Odysseus, we've got Daedalus, we have the Minotaur as well. Like, we've got some really great stories interlining with Circe, and it was just really fascinating and really fun. I will say the beginning of this book felt a little underwhelming. It wasn't until halfway through where I finally started really getting into it, and it definitely started feeling like a Greek soap opera, if you will, because it definitely had a lot of like betrayal, backstabbing, it had monsters, it had a lot of murder, it had a lot of like ridiculous romances going on as well. Like, it was just, it read like a Greek soap opera. It was great. And the ending too was just so satisfying. A lot of the books I feel like I've read this month, like I've said, the endings were just not satisfying. They felt abrupt, too short, blah, blah, blah. This one did not feel that way at all. And it didn't even need an epilogue. It felt complete. Once I read it, I was like, okay, the story feels done. I feel like I have closure. I can move on to my next book. So yeah, I really thought it was a great ending to this story. I felt like it was a little boring at times, but overall, I enjoyed myself reading this book, so I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. And that is all that I have for you with this video. If you want, you can check out my movie wrap-up for this month, as well as just my regular wrap-up where I talk about things that I liked and did and what all the good things about this month. So go check them out, and hopefully I will see you guys soon with another video this month. If not, it'll be next month. But yeah, so I'll see you guys later. Bye!